Sometimes the most revealing thing an athlete says doesn't come after a win. It comes after the kind of loss that hurts, the kind that forces you to look at yourself when the cameras are still rolling and the emotions are still raw. That's exactly why Alex Eala's reaction after her match against Belinda Bencic caught so much attention. Fans were expecting disappointment. They were ready to see a young player dealing with the frustration of coming up short against an experienced opponent. Instead, Alex delivered something much more meaningful. There were no excuses, no bitterness, and no attempt to blame the circumstances. What came through was the mindset of a player who seems to understand one of the hardest lessons in professional sports: a loss isn't the end of your story. Sometimes, it's the part of the story that teaches you the most. That matters because anybody can look confident when everything is going their way. Anybody can smile when the scoreboard says they won. But when you've spent months preparing, when you've carried the hopes of fans back home and Filipino supporters around the world, and then the result doesn't go your way, that's when character really shows. Alex's response revealed a young athlete who appears to be looking beyond one afternoon, one opponent, and one disappointing result. And to understand why that response matters, you have to look at what happened on the court. Belinda Bencic is not some inexperienced opponent still figuring out life on the professional tour. She has spent years competing at the highest levels of women's tennis, playing Grand Slams, facing elite competition, and learning how to perform when the margins get incredibly small. When a player with that kind of experience steps across the net from a rising talent like Alex, every detail becomes important. Bencic's serve was one of those details. When she found her rhythm, she was able to earn easier points and create opportunities to take control immediately after the serve. Alex had strong serving moments of her own, but there were also stretches of inconsistency, the kind of thing young players often experience while learning how to reproduce their best tennis under maximum pressure. From the baseline, Bencic's experience showed as well. She wasn't simply waiting around and hoping Alex would miss. She was willing to take the initiative, redirect the ball, use the angles of the court, and dictate the tempo of rallies. Alex produced flashes of the aggressive tennis that has made so many people excited about her future, but there were also points where she seemed to be responding to what Bencic was doing rather than forcing Bencic to respond to her. The return game became another major part of the battle. When Alex was able to attack Bencic's second serve and get herself into an offensive position early in the point, the rallies looked completely different. But when Bencic landed enough first serves, she took away many of those opportunities before Alex could establish herself. That is life at this level. Sometimes the difference between controlling a rally and defending for your life is a serve that lands a few inches inside the line instead of a few inches outside it. Against experienced players, those tiny margins can decide entire matches. But what stood out afterward was that Alex didn't appear to turn those details into excuses. Her message was about competing, learning, improving, and continuing forward. She treated the loss as part of the process rather than some devastating verdict on where her career is headed. For Filipino fans, that perspective carries extra weight. Supporters in the Philippines, across North America, and throughout overseas Filipino communities have followed Alex with real emotional investment. They celebrate her wins, feel the pressure of her biggest matches, and take pride in seeing a Filipina competing on major stages. Naturally, they also feel the disappointment when she loses. But Alex's response gave those supporters another reason to believe in her. Talent is important, but handling disappointment is part of becoming a complete professional. There are players who lose and allow the result to damage their confidence. There are players who immediately search for someone or something to blame. And then there are players who accept what happened, study it, and get back to work. Alex's reaction placed the focus firmly on that third path. When you look at champions across sports, you see the same pattern again and again. They don't enjoy losing. They don't pretend it doesn't hurt. But they find a way to turn disappointment into information. They identify the difference between themselves and the opponent who beat them, then they go back to practice and try to close that gap. From a tennis standpoint, a match against Bencic can teach Alex things that practice sessions simply cannot. You can talk about precision in training. You can work on consistency every day. A coach can explain what it feels like to play someone who refuses to give away cheap points. But actually standing across the net from that player is different. That experience teaches you how quickly decisions must be made. It teaches you what happens when an opponent consistently makes you play another ball. It teaches you how much your first serve matters under pressure, how important court position becomes, and how difficult it is to impose your style when an experienced opponent controls the rhythm. Those lessons could ultimately become extremely valuable for Alex. There is also a psychological component. Playing someone with Bencic's resume naturally carries weight. A younger player knows exactly who is standing on the other side of the net. There can be respect, pressure, and even a temptation to give the opponent too much credit before the match has truly developed. Alex, however, competed. She had moments of impressive tennis. She challenged Bencic. She didn't simply step onto the court intimidated by experience. And once the match was over, her response suggested that she was thinking about the bigger picture instead of allowing one loss to overwhelm everything she has already accomplished. That may be one of the biggest reasons Filipino supporters connect with her. It isn't only about ground strokes, serving, speed, or athletic ability. It's also about how she carries herself. There's a seriousness to the way she approaches her career and an understanding that professional tennis is going to test her emotionally as much as physically. A loss like this is part of that education. Nobody goes from promising young player to established elite competitor without setbacks. The best players in the world have all walked off courts wondering what went wrong. They have all been outplayed. They have all had moments where another player exposed something that needed improvement. The difference is what happens afterward. For Alex, this match provides a clear reference point. It gives her and her team something to analyze. Where did Bencic consistently gain the advantage? How can Alex make her serve more dependable in pressure situations? How can she impose herself earlier in rallies? How can she turn strong stretches into sustained control over an entire match? Those are productive questions because they turn defeat into development. That is why this moment could eventually become more important than it appears right now. Years from now, if Alex reaches the level her supporters believe she can reach, people may look back at matches like this and recognize them as part of the foundation. Not because losing itself is something to celebrate, but because learning how to respond to losing is essential. Young athletes watching from the Philippines can learn something from that too. The road to excellence is almost never a straight line. There are wins that make everyone celebrate, and there are losses that force you to become better. Resilience isn't pretending disappointment doesn't hurt. It's feeling it, understanding it, and deciding that it won't stop you. The real redemption story, then, isn't necessarily about Alex immediately getting another shot at Bencic and winning. It's about what Alex does with the experience. It's about refusing to allow one result to define her confidence. It's about looking at defeat as information rather than disaster. The tennis world will continue watching because talent alone doesn't tell the full story of a young player. Temperament matters. Emotional control matters. The ability to handle the constant swings between victory and defeat matters enormously over a long professional career. And Alex's reaction showed why people remain so interested in where this journey goes next. She is becoming more than simply a promising player with exciting potential. She is learning how to deal with the uncomfortable side of professional competition. She is learning how to lose without losing belief in herself. And if she can continue taking difficult experiences, studying them, and using them to sharpen her game, then matches like this could eventually become stepping stones towards something much bigger. So what do you think? Did Alex Eala's reaction after the loss change the way you view her journey? Do you believe matches against experienced opponents like Belinda Bencic are necessary steps for a rising player trying to reach the elite level? And if these two meet again down the road, do you think this experience could help Alex approach that next battle differently? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update on Alex Eala, the biggest developments in professional tennis, and the stories behind the matches that mean more than the final score. We are watching a young athlete develop in real time, and sometimes the losses tell us just as much about the future as the victories do.